Making the jump from bootstrapped to VC backed can be big changes for your business. How quickly should you hire, and how do you maintain your culture as you grow? This week on Bootstrapped, the lighter side, we talk with Kylie Troy-West, the co-founder and chief operating officer of Factor House, a software design company based in Melbourne, Australia. Kylie gives great insights on the fundraising journey. She shares her goals for expanding headcount and sales, and talks about her passion for empowering other female entrepreneurs. Welcome to Bootstrapped, the lighter side, the podcast for B2B startup founders wanting to achieve success without giving up ownership or control. This podcast is brought to you by Lighter Capital, the leader in founder-friendly financing for B2B SaaS companies. Learn more at lightercapital.com. Hi, Kylie. I am so thrilled to be here today to talk to you about Factor House, a Lighter Capital portfolio company that we had the great privilege of funding you about 2 years ago when we gave you $250,000. And you have sure done a lot with that money. So we are here to talk about your founder journey, and fundraising, which is something I know a lot of our listeners are interested in. So welcome, Kylie. Why don't we just start with you telling us about Factor House?
Yeah, fantastic. Well, Melissa, thank you so much for having me today. As you mentioned, we partnered with Lighter Capital. I mean, it feels like much longer than 2 years ago, but I don't think it was. So Factor House is a B2B enterprise software company. So we build engineering tools for some really powerful real-time open source technologies, Apache Kafka and Apache Flink. They're not sexy technologies. They sit at the data layer of organizations, and they kind of really power the machines that are delivering real-time services for companies. So platforms like LinkedIn, which is actually where Kafka was created, Netflix, they all rely on Apache Kafka at their kind of core. And we build solutions that really empower engineers to build great Kafka and Flink powered systems and to really understand those technologies and do great things with them.
How did you and your co-founder, and we'll talk a little bit more about your co-founder, how did you come up with the idea?
My co-founder, as you kind of hinted at, there is a bit of a story there. So my co-founder is my husband. And I think primarily my husband, Derek, who is our CEO, and I had for a long time been looking for something to do together in a meaty way. So I had been supporting his technology consultancy company. He ran a closure and Kafka consultancy for many years, and I supported him in that. But I had my full-time job in events management, and we sort of had a taste of working together and wanted to have a project that was really shared. And through that consultancy, we identified that this technology called Kafka was going to really revolutionize the way that businesses were working. The demand for businesses to be real time, to be responsive to their customers, that was a trend that we were seeing. And Kafka was the technology that was taking these businesses there. And so through the consultancy, we were seeing more and more of our clients wanting to adopt this technology or build their products from the start as a Kafka or Kafka Streams product. As technologists ourselves, and with the clients that we were working with, we were just seeing all of the developers were running into the same roadblocks. They were all having the same challenges. Everyone talks about the aha moment where you go, I think there's a business in that. And we could see that there was a need for an enterprise, so like a very secure developer tool that would provide insights and troubleshooting capabilities for Kafka. And I think it came at a time where we were able to capitalize on that. So we'd been looking for the opportunity, we'd been waiting for the idea, and we sold our house, which kind of seems a bit crazy now, but we sold our house and we put our savings into starting up the business. And kind of that was the beginning of our bootstrap journey. We just dived straight in and went from there.
That's huge. I know. And with young kids in the mix, it's such a testament to backing yourselves to take that step and sell your house. And it's obviously worked out really well. Tell us, when you and Derek started the company, how did you decide on titles and who was going to do what? And I think this is something so many of lighter capital's portfolio companies have been husband and wife businesses. And I think that I started my software company, Seven Software. I actually co-founded with the person that became my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, the CTO. So I have a little bit of experience in that space as well.
Oh, absolutely. And we've had many conversations about it as well. And I think particularly in the early days, having that person that you trust with absolutely everything to bounce business ideas off, and like someone that's equally as committed to the business as you, is really, really important. With Derek and I, we never really kind of focused on titles too much. When we started the business, we had two very small children, and at its heart, Kapow was his idea. I talk about it as being our idea, but at its very core, it was his idea. He continues to have a really strong vision for where the product is going. He moved into that CEO role. And I think historically, my background has been in operations, it's been in project management, it's been in festival management. And my strength has always been in creating kind of the structures for other people to thrive. So it was always like a very natural role for me to sit as the chief operating officer. And then even as the team has grown and the business has evolved, that business strategy, the go-to-market play, the HR and culture piece, that still resonates with my skill set. So kind of continue to move forward under that structure as we've grown.
I think when we first funded you, there were 4 people in the business. Is that including you and your husband? Is that correct?
Do you know what? I actually think there was only 3 of us when
oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
when we first started talking to Matt. The first conversation that we had with Matt, this is Matt Dowling from your team in Melbourne. A couple of weeks later, we closed our first deal, and we'd got to the point where we were looking at taking some finance, and then we closed our first proper enterprise deal, and we kind of went, oh, we don't need the money anymore because there's only 3 of us.
Yeah, revenue is the best source of funding. Yeah.
And so we pushed it off a year, and that was actually a really good decision for us, because by that point we had grown the team only a tiny bit, but we had grown the team and we were in a better position to deploy the capital effectively. And I think if we'd taken it earlier, we just didn't have the business maturity to be deploying that capital well.
Yeah. Kylie, your product is sold to large companies, but to engineers in large companies, but you do this without having a direct sales team. You've sold to lots of enterprises without having a direct sales team. So tell us about that.
We have, and sometimes we joke that we're not even sure where everybody came from, because we've had such a low profile that we call some of our early adopters mountaineers, because they literally had to scale the mountain to find the solution that they needed. This is just a testament to the quality of the product and the way that we have solved the problem. So Kafka is an amazing technology for large organizations, for large enterprises. However, at its core, what it requires is a really responsive, feature-rich, and kind of like a tactile solution that's designed for engineers. And so what we've always done is stayed really true to the people that are using Kafka, to the needs of the engineers that are building the systems with Kafka. And because the evolution of our product has reflected that, kind of growing our customer base has happened very organically. And I think even the way that the product is built itself has helped with that too. So, the banking sector, of course, is really notorious for being very selective about what types of products.
And hard to sell into.
Yeah, absolutely hard to sell into. But because of particularly Derek and our founding engineers, Tom's background in finance and in fintech, when they set about to build the solution from scratch, they built it in a way that was really compatible with enterprise deployment. And so even though we come in underground at that engineering level, when you surface the solution up to the decision makers, it's a very easy thing to say yes to, because it looks like the kind of product that they recognize, that they use in their product stack already. And it really can just be dropped in and deployed at that enterprise level without any concerns from the CTO or the CIO around security or around data management. It's just kind of out of the box, ready to go.
So engineers really, this is a product that engineers discover for themselves, and they're not buying it based on who the best salesperson is or the best marketing efforts, the best marketing. They're just going out and finding the best product.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. And I think the thing is, like, engineers are really disconcerting. They don't really care about what product has the fanciest label or the best branding, looking for really high quality products that do what they need them to do. And so, that's where we've always had the advantage, because we've always maintained that resolute focus on our user, and we've informed all of our product decisions on that.
Yeah, and obviously I've done such a great job there. Okay, so let's talk about fundraising a little bit more. So Bootstrapped sold your house, then the 250,000 from Lighter, and then you continue to grow. And this year, or just the end of last year, 2024, you took $5 million from, some of the best VCs in Australia, Blackbird, OIF, Flying Fox. What went into the decision to do that?
The decision, I guess, was primarily based on two things. So number one was the quality of our product. So we had demonstrated like absolute product market fit. For a company at the time that only had 5 employees, we had 8 or 9 Fortune 500 companies as clients. We had this proven track record of not just landing great customers, but keeping them and growing them. And so, this is happening on one side, but then the market is huge. The opportunities, the real-time streaming data market present are really massive. And that's actually not something that we could do under that bootstrap model. And so we discussed it between the founding team and decided that now was the time. We laughed. So Pete Lilly, the CEO of Instacluster, he told us, you'll never regret bootstrapping as long as you can. But when you can't bootstrap anymore, you need to move quickly. And so we had reached the end of that period of being able to bootstrap a company, and our growth ambitions were bigger. So it was time to flick.
Yeah. So it was really having a definitive need for the capital and knowing you wanted to go faster, it sounds like. Tell us about the fundraising process. I've yet to meet an entrepreneur who says they like fundraising. And I mean, I can't stand it either. And I was a VC, on the other side for almost 20 years. It feels like such a distraction, working on the primary business or your main business. But your journey, from at least my vantage point, seemed like a pretty pleasant one.
It was challenging and it was time consuming, but compared, I think, to the journey that some other founders that I've been talking to have had, it was relatively straightforward. And there are a couple of things that I think I can put that down to. We, over the period of 5 years, had built a self-sustaining, very viable company with, people talk about minimum viable product, with like the maximum viable product. So we came into the process with an amazing client, amazing client book, a product that just absolutely sings. We kind of appeared from nowhere as well, because we actually started the company a few months before the COVID lockdowns. There were no accelerators. Derek and I were homeschooling 2, tiny children while starting the business. And so all of the things that you normally do when you start when you found a tech company, they just weren't available to us. And we always had so many customers that there was no time to kind of go out and network. I would say we were lucky, but I don't think luck is the right word to describe it. But we got some great introductions like straight off the bat. So when we had made the decision to fundraise, one of the first things I did was I reached out to Launch Vic, introduced myself to the team at Launch Vic, and I said, hey, this is where we're at. This is what we're doing. And they introduced me to Eleanor Toolman, who is our chief of staff now. So she worked at Bill Kite and was like a really large part of their scale-up journey. After Eleanor had been with us for a couple of weeks, she said, hey, I've been talking to Nick from Blackbird, and he'd really like to have a coffee with you guys. You know, our first introduction to Blackbird was actually really early on in the fundraise process, kind of even before we had a pitch deck. So we came into this just like a coffee chat with Nick with no pitch deck, but all the knowledge and enthusiasm and momentum of a company that's been running for 5 years, that has a resolute vision and has an authentic belief in what they're doing and where they're going. The VCs that we were talking to appreciated the authentic approach that we took. And it wasn't, this is my pitch deck and you should invest in us. There wasn't a huge amount of polish about it. It was very much like, let's have a chat. This is who we are. I've got a phone call with a massive client. I've got to go.
Yeah. Yeah. We might consider investing. Yeah. That's how do you make a VC, chase you?
Yeah. And so I think also once you've had a couple of really good conversations, and we could tell very early on that there was going to be a lot of interest in the round. And so that helped as well.
You ended up going with Blackbird, but it sounds like that was the very first VC that you met with also, which, and
it was.
But then you brought in a few more.
We did. So actually it was the introduction to OAF was through Pete Lilly from Instacluster. So I think actually having those really strong introductions from our network made a huge difference to this. Like, do you know what I mean? We weren't starting at sending a pitch deck through a portal. It was a really warm introduction. It was someone also leveraging their personal capital to have that conversation. Do you know what I mean? Like to put us in front of these.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I would say besides the money piece, the biggest value that we have brought to our customers is when they're raising is a warm intro. We can't get them the money of the VC, but we can get them in front of, we can get them meetings, which is the first step. How did you decide to take money from multiple VCs, or was that decision made for you by the venture capitalist? Did they say, we want a syndicate, or did you decide you wanted multiple VCs on your cap table? Which I think is a good idea, by the way.
Well, we were in a very fortunate position. So we did have a VC kind of offer to take the whole round. And we were also talking to some American investors. So we got very late into kind of pitching or kind of having investments signed off by a couple of American firms as well. So it was a bit of a dance, really. And the advice that we'd been given as well was to kind of build the dream team. And so for us, that was with Blackbird leading the round, OAF, who had invested in Instacluster and have really good insight into our industry. And then Flying Fox just have such a great reputation, Rachel Newman and Kylie Fraser. And then we actually have Launch Vic by the Alice Anderson Fund, which is their female founders cycle fund. They've invested as well. And that one was really important to me, particularly because of the work that they do with female founders in Victoria. And I really wanted to kind of, have a seat at the table there, because I think the work that they're doing is brilliant. But also, if we succeed, then that means that they can invest in more women, which is equally important to me.
Yeah, and Kylie, you've been great at really advocating for women in tech. So you've got $5 million, great VCs on your cap table. I'm sure that changes things, right? So how does that change the way you operate the business? How does it change how you think about growth? How does it change in terms of just like, do you feel more pressure on you now to perform than you did when it was you and your husband?
I definitely do. I don't think Derek doesn't feel the pressure in the same way that I do, but I definitely am feeling the pressure to perform and to kind of accelerate the growth in a way that I didn't before. Like in the past, when we were bootstrapping, you had to make enough money. And
Yeah.
but now we've got really ambitious income targets. But with that actually comes the capital to be able to achieve those targets. And so, like, even though there is a pressure, for me, the pressure is around building out the team that can deliver those things. And this is something we talked about earlier, Melissa, the mindset change between being a bootstrap company and being a VC-backed company. It's not something that happens overnight. It's really something that I'm focusing on at the moment. Just little things like going from, I managed a team of 1, now I've got a team of 5, we're growing to 7 in a month, and then 10, and then 20, and kind of as you see the way that you need to evolve as a manager and as a leader, it's all very exciting, but it is different. And it's not, do you know what I mean? It's not something, you don't just have $5 million in the bank account and that instantly happens. It's something that you need to work on, particularly because I want to deploy the capital really well and get maximum impact from that. The nicest thing for us is that for a long time, we've been very, very tech focused. So, the business has been lopsided in terms of the technology as opposed to like the sales and marketing or the operations team. And with the capital, we can now really kind of accelerate on all sides. So growing out the go-to-market capabilities, growing the marketing capabilities, all of those things, which we had to kind of pinch pennies around before. We don't need to do that now. And that's incredibly exciting to just know that we've got the ability to do that. And also a lot of it is around risk as well. When you're bootstrapping, the ability to take risks or challenge the status quo, it's limited. So, not only do we have the capital to take risks, but also our investors are encouraging us to experiment, to take risks, and to be really brave. And I think that's the most exciting thing for me about taking the capital on.
Tell us, I think you had said when you raised the capital, you had a team of 9, and now you are looking to be a team of 24 by the end of the year. So how are you thinking about, you've built such a strong culture. How are you thinking about, maintaining that culture while you really, almost triple the size of your business in a short time?
Yeah, absolutely. That's actually one of the biggest things that I personally grapple with, because at the moment we have a kind of a small but mighty team, and there's a really strong culture. It is a really nice place to come into. So we operate a hybrid environment as well. So the expectation is that you're in the office a couple of days a week, and we're really trying to maintain a nice team, vibe as well. So I guess one of the things that we did very early on was hire Eleanor. And so Elle comes to us with just like such a raft of experience from her time at Bill Kite, getting really good hiring processes in place, having a really good interview process, a really good screening process in place, has been great at making sure that we're kind of getting the right candidates through. And then what we're looking to do in terms of our hiring strategy, we're kind of hiring people in groups. We've sort of got scheduled gaps where people can come up to speed. So it's not like we're hiring a new person every week. We're kind of hiring in tranches, making sure that everyone kind of really understands who we are and what we're doing and the product. And look, I mean, we're not there yet, so I don't know how it's going to go. But, we're hoping that model will kind of cement us as a great place to work and mean that our team is really empowered to do their job well.
And are you using recruiters or doing everything direct, or a little bit of both?
We've been doing everything direct so far, but I mean, I think we're open to using recruiters. We've actually had a really great kind of pool of talent come through to us organically. I think there'll obviously be some like key strategic roles where we might look for some external support, but we've just been really lucky with the quality of candidates that have been coming through.
Any advice on a couple fronts for husband and wives that are thinking of starting a company together? You guys did it and took a big risk with selling your house and then bootstrapping, and have just had a very successful journey to date. What would you advise others who are thinking to do something like that?
The start of our kind of founder journey as husband and wife was very challenging primarily because of COVID. There was like an intense amount of pressure on everything during that time. I mean, Melbourne was in the middle of some really horrific lockdowns as well. So that made things challenging. But I think in terms of working with my partner, I mean, I actually can't think of a better person to go into business with, because particularly in the early days, like, it just requires such a huge investment of time, and there's so much trust that you need to go into something like this. And so, we've always just had each other's back. We've always really, really supported each other. And then, like, even on the family front, there are times when it ebbs and flows, when my workload is huge and so Derek is picking up the slack with the kids, or his workload is huge and I'm picking up the slack with the kids. By maintaining open conversation, that's really helped us to kind of keep the business moving forward. But I think one of the most important things for us is actually that we still prioritize time together outside of the business. So even though we laugh, like our desks used to be right next to each other, we'd still go on a date on Friday lunch, every Friday lunchtime, because it's not a business relationship. It is a loving family relationship as well. And so, I think one of the best things that we have done is try and maintain that. Do you know what I mean? Like that part of our
relationship. No, I do. Yeah, I do. My boyfriend, who's now husband, when I had the company, was my boyfriend. And we started the company like you did out of our house, a rental house in Palo Alto. And he, I was going sort of 24 hours, and he was very much like, once we have dinner, we're not talking business anymore. So that was hard for me to shut down, but he was, which I'm really grateful for, was really disciplined about that. We are coming up on International Women's Day, and so much has happened and so much has changed for women in tech since I've been in Australia. I came here in 2009, and there's just so much more. We're seeing so many more women running companies, and also more women VCs, which is just fantastic. I think a recent stat that Lighter Capital put together, Lighter Capital had done the research and looked at, 16% of all VC-backed companies are in Australia are run by women. So there's a ways to go, but I can tell you it's a lot better than it was, 10, 15, 20 years ago. And 27% of all VCs who are in investment roles in Australia are women. Still a ways to go, but much better than it was even going back a decade ago. So what advice do you have, or observations do you have, on women looking to start businesses and women in tech in general?
I think the one piece of advice I would have is just do it. Really back yourself. Women have as many brilliant ideas as men, and I think recognize your brilliance. And if you have that idea, take that risk. Don't be risk adverse. It is worth it. I think, particularly at the moment, I think there is a really big appetite for female entrepreneurs to succeed. And so, ride that wave. And, people like the Alice Anderson Fund are a really great place to start. They're investing in a lot of really brilliant female founders at that kind of pre-seed and seed stage. If you have a brilliant idea, look around, understand the ecosystem, and just do it. Back yourself to do it.
There are so many more resources than there were before with Apripella, and like you said, the Alice Anderson's Fund and Springboard and Scale. So there are a lot of resources there to support women entrepreneurs.
Absolutely. And there's a really strong network of female entrepreneurs and founders in Victoria and in Australia as well. So reach out to me, reach out to, any women that you admire that have founded their own business. I guarantee they will talk to you. So just do it.
Thank you so much, Kylie. You're an inspiration to women and entrepreneurs everywhere. And we're just happy to have this time to talk with you, but also just at Lighter, just grateful to have been on a piece of your journey with you.
Oh, thank you so much, Melissa. It was a real pleasure chatting with you today. And I have long admired the work that you've done at Lighter Capital, particularly around Lighter Capital's record in supporting female founders and female-led businesses. So yeah, absolute pleasure to chat with you today.
Thanks again to Kylie for joining our podcast today. And to learn more about Factor House, you can visit factorhouse.io. That's factorhouse.io. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Bootstrapped, the lighter side. To receive future episodes, subscribe using your favorite podcast platform. And if you enjoy this show, please share it with other fellow founders and entrepreneurs. For more insights, helpful tips, and to learn more about founder-friendly financing options, visit us at lightercapital.com. That's LIGHTERCAPITAL.com.